welcome, Pri. I feel like I'm also one of the hosts because I've been writing for almost 3 years for MediaCat, so I feel like a part of the MediaCat family now. But welcome to Brand Week. I guess
Thank
this will
you.
be broadcasted in Turkey, so welcome to Turkey as well as a Turkish person. I guess I'm
Good to be back.
allowed to say that. Exactly. So. I just want to first start with sharing our prayers and thoughts and prayers for the people who experienced the earthquake today in Izmir. We were also shaken by the news we received from Turkey. And then I'll just go ahead with the intro. So I'm Bedi Zeker. I'm the Managing Director of Strategy and Insights at VML New York. It's been almost 3 years since I got relocated. And I was lucky enough to meet Pri along the way during this journey. We were both selected for a program of the Marketing Academy in New York. So we were basically, scholars, classmates of the inaugural class of the Marketing Academy in New York. And, I'm still so grateful for the program and for the great people I've met. And Pri is also like one of those people. And Pri is now working as a consultant at Egon Zehnder. Each time I feel like I'm butchering the pronunciation of your company because in Turkey we used to call it Egon Zehnder, and now I'm trying to pronounce it as Egon Zehnder. So Pri, you just like after like years of great marketing career, you decided to change lanes. Would you like to talk about what you do a little bit?
Sure. And by the way, two things. One, welcome to the club, even within the firm, Aegon. But the correct, you actually have it right. It's Egon Zehnder. And you mentioned the Marketing Academy, and I ended up moving to this side of the world where it's all about leadership advisory, executive search, really the people side of strategy. Thanks to the Marketing Academy, it was really there's a lot actually that you have in what I do today that you have in marketing, the chance to make an impact on people's lives, the chance to shape strategy, and it's really an extension where for me I found I got a lot of energy from the people side of our world. Wasn't really that good of a marketer, kind of faked my way up, if you will, but still love talking about it and have the benefit where we sit now in being able to talk to a lot of senior marketing leaders. And what I love doing is just getting different perspectives on what's happening. And we've been able to really have a nice picture of what the world looks like of marketing, coming out of COVID as a result of those conversations as well.
Amazing. And I actually want to use one of the recent studies you guys conducted, which answers the question about how marketing industry changed after COVID, actually still during COVID because it's not over yet. But we will feel the impacts on our personal lives and in the industry as well, professionally, and we are experiencing it. And you guys have done an amazing research talking to 65 senior marketing executives. As far as I know, would you like to talk about the methodology, the people you've talked with, and like the initial outcomes of it, and then we can take it from there?
Certainly. And the methodology, and this is part of why I love my job, is we as a living are talking to interesting people all the time. And what we decided to do as a practice group within the Chief Marketing Officer practice group was all ask the same question interesting people were talking about, which is what will the marketing function look like coming out of COVID? And so whenever we had someone on the phone, we said, hey, do you have an extra minute? Would love your thoughts on this topic. And so, as you mentioned, 65 executives across 61 companies, asking that question and then synthesizing and summarizing it into the common themes that we've been seeing.
Did you talk to anyone from Turkey without mentioning their names or companies?
I don't believe so. I'm not going to pretend that I know, but I don't believe so. I personally did not. I had
Okay.
India, San Francisco, but no, nothing in Turkey on my side, but my colleagues perhaps.
But I think like this global pandemic has also made us realize that we're not that different from each other. Like we're all on the same boat and we're experiencing same type of traumas and experiences throughout the world. So I'm sure I personally could relate with most of the findings you guys pulled together. Not only because I'm working in US market in North America, but also like I'm still connected to Turkey. And I think like most of the findings you have pulled together are still relevant for, it's across the borders. So I just want to start talking about it's composed of three parts. So you start, first talking about the evolution of the market. So that part is called market morphosis. And then the second part is about the new marketing, how marketing function has evolved after COVID. And then the last part is about the marketing leadership, like what kind of new leaders we need in market industry after this global pandemic. So I want to start with the first section in chronological order a little bit, as how the market beyond just marketing or like specific functions have evolved. What is your personal take on the outcomes of the research?
And if I were to encapsulate the three-part series in one word, it would be acceleration. And what that means is a lot of what you're seeing would have happened anyways, but it's just happening much more quickly. I think the one thing that I would say did change more so than I think you would have ever imagined is we now need to expect the unexpected in a much more meaningful way than I think any of us ever thought possible. I mean, just think about how we're all surviving right now, and we've made it through. But we need to start to be able to do this on a more ongoing basis. So really, COVID obviously turned our world upside down, but what that means is this, idea of these 12, 18-month planning cycles, those days are over. It needs to move much more quickly. Related to that, the other kind of thing that I really think is accelerating a lot is a shift of consumers to digital and e-commerce channels. I think what happens is once people, and you see this first in the cities, right? We're in New York and online groceries are, that's just what Tuesday is or whatever. But, other parts of the country, there's a huge change in habits. And so consumer behaviors have fundamentally changed and accelerated towards a place that they were already going. And related to that really is just the explosion of digitalization. Digital isn't just a marketing term. It's really what needs to happen within the organization. It's the data you collect. It's how nimble you can be, how you can drive everything else through it. And then really, drive that through the rest of the agenda. How do you become more nimble? How do you accelerate with the acceleration?
I can totally relate with that because today actually I'm off. That's the reason why I was really flexible with the timing of this. And it's an example for two things you mentioned and two things I read in your study. So first of all, yes, like the consumer journey is evolving and has evolved tremendously, and I totally agree with the acceleration effect of this global pandemic. Like most of these things we've been experiencing, they were going to happen anyway. They didn't come out of the blue. Some of them maybe, but like most, especially the digital transformation, it's accelerated. And today, as we're off, my wife just asked to go to the Whole Foods to do the grocery shopping because, like, I think this is the first time since last March we're going out to grocery shopping to Whole Foods. And then when we were there, we actually saw people who were filling their baskets, who are doing the shoppings for the people who ordered. Because first of all, it created a new job opportunity for these people. They maybe lost their jobs or maybe they didn't. It's a new job description. People who go to supermarkets and do the shopping for you, and then they deliver it to your door with their cars. And then the second thing is the reason why we are off today is because our company is trying to help all the employees with the mental health, because we've been working like crazy and we've been stretching ourselves too thin. So which is the reason why the company decided to give one more day off to all the employees today. So as you're dealing with the employers in marketing industry as well, how do you see the awareness of the companies and the employers about this, rising, actually emerging need for mental health and awareness about mental health and companies doing something about it? What do you see that territory? How do you see that evolving?
It's interesting. I think companies in general have become more empathetic, and I have a conviction that basically the leaders of our world today are growing in ways that wouldn't have otherwise been possible. So the same idea of acceleration is true in terms of leadership capabilities. People who've had to lead teams through this have tapped into parts of themselves they didn't know about, and it's not just the pandemic in North America, with Black Lives Matters as well. it's really awakened a conversation where people are thinking about things much more holistically. It's actually brought humanity back into things a lot more. And there's a spectrum of how aware and how willing companies are to shift. But generally speaking, I've been really encouraged that one of the silver linings coming out of this is that we now operate in a world where, again, some of the trends that may have otherwise happened, whether that's, hey guys, take some time for yourself when you need it, to, we don't need to be in the office 5 days a week. There's probably very few companies where that needs to be the case. And it really is allowing people to reevaluate things in a way that will change the way that we all operate. Up to, certain companies are even talking about you never have to come back to the office again. And then you can imagine the fundamental shift that can happen around that in terms of where people are living, how they're organizing themselves. And it can really open up a lot of possibilities that we would have never otherwise had, or not for a very, very long time otherwise.
Totally. And what you mentioned about the Black Lives Matter as well, because I also see a parallel between the COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter, and the way the brands have realized the way they have to do things differently. And in the study, I saw a verbatim from Jonathan Mildenhall, who is now the CMO of 21st Century, I guess. He used to be the
Yep.
CMO of Airbnb. I like his term, ads to acts, because now, like, if you don't walk the talk, if you just like talk about your purpose and the vision of your company, and if you don't do anything about it, the consumers and like just the people out, they react, and they actually like like fancy purpose statements out there, actually they fire back at you. So you're
Right.
supposed to do something about it. And we've seen this at the earlier stages of COVID-19, because we were seeing all those ads, with the somber music, and, everybody saying like, oh, we're together, we're in this together. But actually, first consumers wanted to see how we're in this together. Like, I'm in this deep, challenging situation. How are you with me in this? You know what I mean with deep, challenging
Yeah,
situation.
absolutely.
And how are you as a company with me? How are you supporting me and my community? And then with the Black Lives Matter as well, as you know, when those companies all posted those black posts saying like Black Lives Matter hashtag, and then people start to call these companies out who just posted a black square, but who had no diverse talent in their boards, or who weren't doing anything about diversity in their
Right.
companies. So how do you see this evolution from ads to acts in Mr. Mildenhall's words?
And I'll mention the word acceleration again, because this was something that was already happening, the move towards purpose. And you know especially with younger consumers, Generation Z, millennials, there's a lot of this idea of you vote with your dollar, uh, to in order to make the decisions to buy. And you started to have this move towards purpose that I think companies were already recognizing. And I remember a few years ago, the Super Bowl in the U.S. is a big thing, and just all these, various companies that basically had the same ad, and it was trucks to potato chips. And it's just like, what are we even talking about here? And purpose has to permeate the organization, and I think that's really where marketing isn't just about what you say to the consumer. Marketing, it should be permeating the organization, and what you say and what you do have to match up. And if you don't, then you're going to get called to the carpet for that. And you should get called to the carpet for it, because ultimately people want to be interacting with brands. It's almost like you think of brands as your friends. Are these people that you trust, or are they just people who are spouting something out and then doing something different behind the scenes? Like, that doesn't sit well with people. And I think already younger generations had that mindset, and then with this whole kind of revolution between what's been happening with Black Lives Matters and just the pandemic and the need for care, it's been an opportunity for companies that do it right to really stand out. My company is one which I just have been blown away by the response, and have benefited from similar industry and making different decisions. And that, I think, speaks to fundamental values and really living that, and not just talking about the marketing message externally.
Totally. And I think that's also connected to the last section of your research. And I know like there will be a lot of participants to Brand Week from the client side. I mean, there will be people from the agency side, but at the end of the day, like, we're all just human resource for marketing industry. And one thing that caught me in the outcome of the research about the new kind of leadership that we need to implement in the post-COVID era is that, these senior leaders in organizations, especially in marketing, need to bring that visionary approach. And that visionary approach is actually a really strong prerequisite to bring that purpose and vision to life that we were just like talking about. You need to walk the talk and you need to bring things to life. So how do you see this visionary attitude from the marketing leaders manifest in itself today? And how do you see it evolving? And like, is it up to the standards that we need to have today, or where are the shortcomings? And what can people who are listening to this video can do to improve their skills to become those leaders with the necessary visionary mindset?
It's a great question to which I think the answer isn't so simple, because there's, the definition of what marketing is varies so much. There's a reason the average CMO tenure is 2.4 years, which is the lowest of any C-suite function. The definitions are so different. If you ask me what I think marketing needs to be for this all to work, it has to be the voice of the consumer within the organization, and not just, okay, well, we have beautiful ads and, people love what we put out into the universe. It's who are we that matters to consumers, and then how do we translate that to a business standpoint, and how do we make that authentic all the way through? And over time, I come from a consumer products marketing background, so I joined for the classical training, if you will, and it was always, marketing was the P&L leader. And more recently, there's been this bifurcation in a lot of ways, where you have, are you a brand marketer or are you a performance marketer? And the truth is, where this needs to go is back to being holistic and really people who can see the whole picture. And it's about speaking the language of the business. So how do you tie what the consumer is saying to your KPIs on sales and profitability, and really being able to drive that all the way through the funnel, all the way from brand awareness through all the way down to conversion and repeat and advocacy. If that logic's not there, marketing will continue to struggle.
Totally. And, I think we're good for covering most of the things that you guys have brought up as a result of the story. Is there anything else that you want to highlight that we haven't touched upon, or is there anything else like beyond the research you want to make a point about the new marketing environment we're all struggling through?
Absolutely. I think, there is no more exciting time to be a marketer. It's really just, you get to shape not only your teams, you get to shape culture, and it's becoming more complicated, which you could either say, oh man, it's becoming more complicated, or you could say, this is really cool, and I have all these different tools to improve my differentiation on the market, improve the love I have with my consumers. So it's really about, don't think of your remit as marketing. Think of your remit as, why'd you get into marketing? What's your purpose? And then how can you make that happen? Which will allow you, I think, to think a bit more broadly about what you can bring to the table. Because ultimately, marketing has a huge opportunity to really be one of those. And this is sort of the marketing academy logic more than anything. I think our first day is, the reason that program exists is because, marketers can change the world. And that's not every job that gets to do that. And we're now at a point in time where that voice is amplified. So you can either look at it as a challenge and say, wow, it's getting tricky, or you could say, this is awesome, and I'm in the middle of this, and I get to do really, really fun things. And I would highly encourage the latter as a mindset.
That's amazing. And I just want to close with one more point to discuss with you. I don't want to like handpick a word from what you've said, but like differentiation is also something that's, mentioned in the outcome of the study pretty frequently, because as you said, like the digital transformation is accelerated with this global pandemic. And I've actually written about this in November issue of MediaCat, because I feel like, while we're producing the creative output as agencies and advertisers, with the digital transformation, our work started to become too tactical.
Right.
We're like ticking those boxes. We're looking at the customer journey and identifying the barriers and the tension points, and we're like producing work and solutions and experiences to resolve those tensions throughout the journey to make a smoother, purchase funnel. But at the end of the day, when you look at the outcome, the creative outcome of our industry, the marketing industry, it's becoming more mediocre. It's becoming more tactical, unfortunately. But one of the things this accelerated digital transformation will oblige all of us to do is to differentiate ourselves, because now everybody's becoming more digital. Like, just being more digital than your competition is not enough to differentiate yourself in the market. So the new approach to creativity, the new need to differentiate your brand with the creative you put out there in these new channels, that need is growing more than ever. And how do you see that evolving at the moment? And do you think, like, the marketing talent you're interviewing and the marketing talent you get to, place in these big advertisers, how do you see them becoming more woke and aware about this new challenge?
It's a great question. And I think this is exactly where the pendulum is swinging now when it comes to marketing talent. The sweet spot for people who are in the highest demand are those who, we talked a little bit earlier about brand and performance. They're the people who can bridge the two and speak both languages. And I think there's a reason for that, because as you think about what you're saying is another way of saying, well, we've really leaned towards performance recently, which is a lot about driving short term. And you and I actually, it was VML Weiner that hosted both Binet and Field in terms of speaking about just how that is and nothing against sales, but that's a sales mindset. It's not going to be enough to continue to move the needle, and that won't be profitable over time. And you can see in different industries how the impact of brand over time is so important. Compare Expedia to Orbitz, for instance. It's just the difference in the journey is one company focused on the short term, focused on continuing to drive the performance engine. The other company made it more about dreaming bigger. And as a result, you can see in the results today and which company is doing better. But I think it's an extension of underlying trends that have always been there. And it's a question of where does the pendulum go? And I would say, if you asked me this question a year ago, I would say, a lot of your marketers need to develop more on the performance side. And that remains really important. To be as credible and valuable in the market as possible, you have to know the performance side. You have to know what you're going to get out of what you do. But that's no longer enough, because I think a lot of companies have come up the maturity curve to realize there's a time for that, but there's also going to be real important for us to think about brand even from the early days. And as soon as you get past a certain phase, it becomes really, really important. So the pendulum is back to where I think people are realizing it can't just be performance, it can't just be brand, it has to be both. And the people who can have both of those kind of together in their toolkit are extremely valuable right now. That's definitely the sweet spot of the market.
That's amazing news. That just warms my heart as an agent that the pendulum is still swinging to that direction. So, Pri, thank you for your time. It was great to chat as usual, this time recorded for Brand Week. And looking forward to catching up with you over a distant coffee at the park when you're back in the city.
Sounds wonderful. Really appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. And again, I'll just echo what you said at the beginning. Thoughts to you guys going through another crisis in the middle of 2020. Just remember that on the other side of this, we're all going to be stronger and better for it. So thank you very much, Badiz. Always a pleasure, and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.